back to my channel. Today I have a very special guest, Miss Soltau.
I'm happy to be here, Kimmy. What are we doing today?
Today we're reading a story, The Sleeping Beauty.
The Sleeping Beauty? So I have to be asleep to be beautiful? Alright, let's go.
Once upon a time, a king and queen ruled in a faraway kingdom. They had always wanted a child and so were very happy when the queen gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, perfect in every way. A great celebration was planned for christening her. The king invited 12 good fairies to come and give their magic gifts to this precious baby daughter. On the day of the christening, the fairies stepped up to the crib one by one. The gifts of beauty, of kindness, and of true friendship. All these and more they gave to the princess. 11 fairies had given their gifts, and the king and queen were waiting for the 12th fairy to step up to the crib, when there was a noise from the doorway and everyone gasped.
Standing in the doorway was a 13th fairy. She was a wicked fairy and had not been invited to the christening. She was very angry. Pushing her way through the crowd, she marched straight up to the royal cradle, brandishing her wand. "This is my gift for the baby princess," she announced, glaring at the baby. "On her 16th birthday, she will prick her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel and she will die." The crowd watched speechless with horror as the wicked fairy waved her wand over the cradle. Everyone stood silent and terrified as she wrapped her cloak around herself and crackling with laughter and made her way outside. The awful deed was done in seconds.
When the wicked fairy had left, the queen began to weep with fear and misery. "What can we do?" she cried. The 12 good fairies stepped up to the cradle. She had not yet given her gift to the princess. "I cannot undo this terrible spell completely," she said, "but I can help. This is my gift for the baby. On her 16th birthday, the princess will prick her finger on the spindle of spinning wheel, but she will not die. Instead, she will sleep for 100 years. And so the last fairy cast her spell. But the day that had started so happily still ended with sadness for everybody.
Wow. The king still hoped that he could stop the princess from pricking herself. He ordered that all spinning wheels and spindles in the land were to be burnt. Royal servants were sent to every corner of the kingdom to carry out his orders. Soon the glow of burning spinning wheels lit up the countryside. When all the spinning wheels and spindles had been burnt, the king felt sure that his daughter would come to no harm. Years passed and the royal princess grew more lovely every day. She was sweet-mannered, kind, and happy, and made her parents very proud, just like Kimmy. Don't Kimmy? But as her 16th birthday grew nearer, the king and the queen grew more fearful.
At last, the princess' 16th birthday arrived. The king and queen watched anxiously over her, trying to prevent her from coming to harm. But in a quiet moment, the princess slipped away from them. The castle was very big and there were still rooms in it that she had never seen. So she decided to explore. In a corner of the castle, far away from her parents, she found a tiny little door. She opened it and saw a narrow, winding staircase. Curious to find out where it led, the princess climbed the twisting steps. When she reached the top, she found another door. She opened the door and found herself looking into a turret room, where a shriveled old woman was sitting working at a spinning wheel.
I wonder what could happen now. What do you think could happen?
She's gonna prick her finger.
She's gonna prick her finger? Alright, let's find out. Come in, my dear. Come in, my dear. Make sure I find out old man voice. "Come in, my dear, and watch me spin," said the old woman. Of course, the princess had never seen a spinning wheel before, and she was quite intrigued. The old woman sat spinning for a few seconds longer and then stopped. "Why don't you try to do it, my dear?" she said, holding out the spindle to the princess with a smile. The princess eagerly reached out to take hold of the spindle, but as she did so, she pricked her finger. Immediately, she fell to the floor in a deep sleep. The old woman disappeared, and in her place stood the wicked fairy. She laughed when she saw that her magic had worked.
The 12th good fairy had been waiting for this to happen. As the princess fell to the ground, the fairy cast another spell, and all the other people in the castle immediately fell asleep as well. "The princess shall not sleep alone," said the fairy. Sentries fall asleep in their sentry boxes. The cook slumped against the kitchen tables. Servants all over the castle dropped into a deep sleep in the middle of their chores. The king and queen sat sleeping on their thrones in the great hall. The animals belonging to the royal household all fell asleep too. Soon there was not one living creature left awake in the castle. All was silent.
Wow. I would like to sleep on the job. I would like to be asleep on my job. And so it remained for years and years. The rooms of the castle were filled with dust. Spiders moved in and wove their cobwebs everywhere, like lace hanging from the ceilings and door frames. The great gardens which surrounded the castle were neglected. The weeds grew unchecked and smothered many of the beautiful plants that had grown there. The grass on the lawns grew tall and spindly. Enormous clumps of brambles and other thorns began to grow up the walls. As the years passed, it became harder and harder to see the castle as the brambles and thorns began to cover it. And still the princess and the royal household slept. Wow.
Then one day a prince from another kingdom came riding in the woods which surrounded the castle grounds and saw what he thought was a mountain of brambles and thorns. He rode nearer, and amongst the brambles he caught sight of one of the castle's windows glinting in the sunshine. He had heard the story of the beautiful sleeping princess and realized that this must be the castle in which she lay. He summoned his men to help him, and together they managed to cut a path through the thorns all the way up to the castle door. The prince heaved the door open. It creaked as it swung back. Taking a deep breath, the prince stepped into the silent hallway and gasped to see all the sleeping people.
Wonder how they stay asleep so long.
100 years.
100 years, huh? The prince began to explore the castle. Everywhere he went, he found sleeping. Tell me the word here. Courtiers.
Yes.
Courtiers. Everywhere he went, he found sleeping courtiers and servants. He had to step over them in doorways. He found them sleeping on staircase or snoring in corners. At last, he came to the turret room where the princess lay. He gazed at the sleeping princess. She looked beautiful. She had been sleeping for 100 years now, but she was so lovely as she had been on the day of her 16th birthday. The prince fell in love with her instantly. He kissed her gently. So as he did so, the princess opened her eyes and smiled.
At that moment, the rest of the people in the castle woke up, stretching and yawning. Everyone was amazed to see what happened to the castle while they had been asleep. Dogs began sniffing around in search of food, and horses began to whine in the stables. The prince and princess walked together hand in hand out of the turret room and went in search of the king and queen. The king was overjoyed to see that his precious daughter was safe and well. And when the prince asked the king and queen for their permission to marry the princess, they set plans in motion at once for the castle to be prepared for a great wedding.
Wow, really now? Wow. I have questions, right? Later we ask the questions then. Bells rang out all around the kingdom on the day that the young prince and his sleeping beauty princess were to be married. The princess looked radiant in her wedding gown, and the prince looked proud and handsome as he stood beside her at the altar. The king and the queen cried with happiness as they watched their daughter being married. The wedding feast went on all night. There was music and dancing and laughter filled the air. It was the greatest celebration that had ever been witnessed in the kingdom. And the 12th good fairy was the guest of honor. The end. Tell me about the story. Tell me from the title. What's the title of the story?
The title of the story is The Sleeping Beauty.
Sleeping Beauty? Who are the main characters in this story?
The king, the queen, the prince, and the princess, and the wicked fairy.
And the good fairy, the 12th good fairy,
yes,
and who else? The prince, right?
Yes.
The prince. What do you think about the king and the queen making the decision to leave the bad fairy out of it? Do you think that if she was invited, she would have cast a bad spell?
I think
If she was invited, she would have still cast a bad spell?
Yes.
I think she cast a bad spell because she wasn't invited. What do you think? Because shouldn't she feel left out? Would you like to feel left out? No, you must be invited, right? Be a part of the thing.
But I think she would still do a bad thing.
You think she...
Because remember, she's a bad fairy.
Some people are bad by nature, but what if they had invited her? She would have said, oh my God, even though I'm bad, they invited me, I'm going to do a good deed this time. That could have worked, no? Because sometimes you have to give people chances, right? Or you don't really want to give them a chance, and then them shows that them really bad. Don't it? What do you think about the king making the decision to hide all the spindles? Do you think he should have hid all of them? He didn't hide them, he burned them.
He should have burned them because the queen, the wicked fairy would get the spindles.
But even though he burned them, she still get one spindle to prick her finger, right?
She's a fairy. She could magic one.
This is what I think. I think that the king should have told his daughter that there was a spell on her life. What do you think? You think his story would have turned out a different way?
Yes, because if he told her, I don't think the princess would be searching.
Because
she would be scared.
This was the first when she fell. When she met the old lady, this was the first time she was seeing a spindle, so she never know how to use it.
This is just.
That's why I cut her finger. But if she didn't know how to use it for a long time, you wouldn't cut her finger though. So I think father could have make she learn how to use one spindle. Let's just talk about the prince. What do you think about the prince?
He did a good job.
Good job? What part of his job was a good job? I'm laughing because tell me why I think he did a good job.
He saved the princess.
He saved the princess. I didn't think he did a good job. Would you kiss a dead body? Like
It
would
wasn't
you?
dead.
It's would you kiss a stranger lying on the floor asleep?
It's a story.
I know. Okay, Kimmy. I know it's a.
So you're asking me, what if it's real?
I'm asking. All right. It's not real. So let's not think about it like it's real. But what if there are little children like you, little children your age, but not like you? Like it's not real. But what about a little child that doesn't know it's real and they would think it's okay to kiss a lying stranger? Would you kiss a lying stranger on the floor?
But the thing is, the prince heard about the story from a long years ago.
Oh, but he heard the story, but she was still a stranger on the floor. I was just reading when we were reading. I'm just thinking about it. Like, what kind of story is this? Because somebody just walking in. All right, think about it. They've been asleep for 100 years. Cobweb.
I'm with you on that one.
So the body would be dirty, don't it?
Yes.
And him kiss the dirty body.
Hmm.
All right. What other ending would you give this story?
Like I'll give the same ending.
You'd give the same. No, all right.
Like they have a happily ever after.
I'm challenging you to give a different ending to this story.
A different ending.
Yes. Instead, so the prince finds them. So after the prince finds them, what happened? Different story. What would happen?
They have a ball,
Mm-hmm.
and then they get married.
But that's what happened here. I want a different ending.
They have a ball, and then after a while, their parents passed away, and then the prince and the princess had to rule over the kingdom, and they had kids, and then they got married.
So they get married after they have kids.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Here's my alternate ending. So he finds the bodies, him kiss them, and when she wake up, she fight him.
Seriously?
Who are you? Get out! So well, Sleeping Beauty. You don't have to be asleep to be beautiful. And what else can we take away from this story?
What else can we get away from the story? The Wicked Fairy.
The Wicked Fairy. Like, wouldn't we try to be wicked, right? We should be good. We should be the good fairy.
Every story that I ever read, there's always a bad part in it.
Because you have to have what do you call them? An antagonist. You have to have a conflict. Even in your daily life, problems arise, don't it? Or if somebody, a confrontation might come up, and then you have to find a resolution. So that's how they write stories. You have the introduction, you have the settings, they set the settings, they tell you where it's happening, then they introduce you to the characters, then a conflict has to arise, and then after the conflict, now you have a resolution at the end. So that's how they make stories. Would you write stories? Maybe. So if you were to write a story, what would you write?
I would write about the king who gave up his life.
The king who gave his life
Yes.
for his people?
Yes.
I would read that, because that's sacrifice. Why would the king need to give his life?
There are people there who would I don't know.
You don't know? So say the people in trouble, and so this other nation come to fight the king's nation, and a bike is passing. The other nation said the only way we leave you alone if the king give up himself as a sacrifice. I don't know. Think about it, and we can publish a book. So it'll be an author, Kimmy. Alright. So we're at the end.
Yes.
Will you tell the people them?
Thank you for watching my video today, and please subscribe and like and turn on the notification bell.
Them not hear you. You have to be more excited. People, if you're still watching, please subscribe to Kimmy's channel, and she have lots more in store. Tell them now.
I have a lot more videos in store.
Right. So if you want to see more from Kimmy, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends.
Yes, please.
Bye. Say bye.
Bye.